My neighbors always ask me, "Hey Pete, how do you keep your yard so nice?"
Pete makes it simple with a Scott's Turf Builder feeding program. It's the best way to get the yard you want all year long, guaranteed. All it takes is 4 easy feedings. Just once in early spring, late spring, summer, and fall. Providing nutrition and weed control to keep your lawn lush and green.
So, now you know my secret.
This is a Scott's Yard. Pick up a Scott's Turf Builder program today.
Caught Offside with Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney.
Oh, yes! Caught Offside from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, how are you?
Doing great. Doing just great. Got 2 podcasts out this week. If you get the chance, tune into the other one in addition to this one, because it's a very deep dive on Zlatan Ibrahimovic and his arrival in the United States, because Zlatan doesn't go anywhere without fanfare. And it seems to be a fair share of that has followed him to Los Angeles.
And we are contributing with our hype pod of Zlatan, which includes interviews from Gothenburg and Los Angeles.
Are we part of the problem? Like, are we applying, is this just the most base?
Look, people are talking about it, so why wouldn't we talk about it?
I know. Yeah, you're right. Who are we? We're not better than anyone.
Well,
we are the lowest common denominator.
I'm a bit better than you.
Oh. Well, I'm certainly not better than anyone. I say all the time that when I go down to the subways in New York, I ask the rats for permission to walk by. I'm lower than them.
You see, nobody likes this self-deprecation from you.
Well, I'm sorry.
Because secretly we know you're sneering at everyone else.
You portray this image of me that is just so patently false. At any rate, how's your life?
Good. Just had some fried chicken, so I'm buzzing.
Yeah, what a pig. You walk down there, a group of guys are eating while they're watching the hockey game, and you just dig in like it's like you didn't give anybody even $1 for it. You just walk over, oh, chicken. Oh, thanks. Like no consideration to even ask whose it was. It was really disgusting, to be honest. You disgust me.
I thought it was free fried chicken. That's why.
What is there like a chicken hanging out in the newsroom that they've cooked? Nothing's free in this world.
You just don't. You're afraid to ask for anything.
I'm very full and content right now. I had no desire to eat any of that fried chicken.
It was good. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. You've been over there licking your fingers disgustingly for the last 10 minutes.
That's actually the one thing I didn't do. There's nothing grosser than licking someone's fingers after eating fried chicken or after they've put their fingers in a nut bowl and then going...
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do that.
Wholeheartedly agree. I'm living it right
So the
now.
pod's off to a good start anyway.
There we go. Let's see. You know what? Let's get right into it now. Of course, our boys in blue last night, the United States men's national team. And I say boys in blue because they were sporting new uniforms, which I'm going to say, I know everyone, like, whenever stuff like this happens, everyone always expects, we live in such a cynical world, everything just gets crapped on. Like, that's just what, but I'm not going to do that. I enjoyed those uniforms. I thought they were nice. It's a shame that we won't be wearing them in a World Cup. I don't really know what they're for, but I like them. And there, I said it.
I like them too. I like the white version in particular. I wish we'd settle on what a home jersey is. I don't know why we're...
What do you mean? Oh, because sometimes we wear blue, sometimes we wear white.
Which one's the home jersey?
Let them wear both. They're both. They're just...
I'll tell you,
it's a fashion show right now. That's all any of this is. It's a fashion show that they happen to be playing soccer in. They're just selling uniforms. None of these games mean anything.
It's serious corporate cojones to go launching a jersey for a team that isn't going to the World Cup.
I know.
And I do think that it puts pressure on the fans immensely to go out and buy it. And
really? I don't know anyone that's feeling pressure to go out and buy those
because it's a
uniforms.
nice jersey, so they're going to go out and spend $80 on it. And guess what, Andrew? If or when it's announced that we are playing in the Copa America in 2019, guess what? There'll be a new jersey out for that, just like there was for the Gold Cup, and on the cycle of nonsense goes.
Soccer jerseys are so expensive, so I will tell you this. If you told me that these jerseys that they're wearing right now are going to be marked way down because the U.S. aren't going to a World Cup, then I would buy one. Absolutely.
They're not going to be marked.
Well, I think they should.
They won't be marked down until next summer when they launch another jersey.
Well, at that point, I would go buy this one because it'll be marked down.
Yeah, marking down in U.S. soccer is not something we can put together when the cheapest ticket...
Look, we're living in a Carlos Cordero world, all right? Anything's possible.
For $50 was the cheapest ticket for North Carolina last night.
Well, that's an improvement from what you said last week when you apparently lied to the people and said that it was $90.
90.
Are you prepared to apologize?
No, 50 was the initial cheapest, and then 90 was the cheapest I could find with a week to go to the game.
Oh.
Don't call me a liar. Your naivete,
your
naivete is unbelievable.
Let's get into the game now. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and preach about the performance and what it means.
It means nothing.
Exactly. It doesn't mean anything. Tony Meola said last night. It was so funny to me. Sometimes you wonder.
Former jet kicker.
These guys calling these games. JP Dellacamera, Tony Meola, they happen to be seasoned pros. So you're getting high quality broadcast from these guys because they're not going to give you fluff or whatever. They're going to tell you like it is. But it's still funny to me to hear Meola say, he actually came out and said, I don't care about the result. It's just about how these guys are performing individually, how they look, how they're progressing. And he's so right. I mean, look, yeah, I'd rather the U.S. win. I mean, I would like to try to instill some sort of... I talk all the time on this podcast about the importance of establishing a winning culture. It's why I want the U.S. to get back into qualifying for the Olympics and things like that. Young players need to be surrounded by a winning culture. But that game last night, winning culture, it's not coming from games like that.
No,
I just want to see positive performances from young players. And to be honest, I thought there were some last night. And we'll go through them, but you seem like you're itching to say something.
No, I just think it's an isolated game in March against a team that also hasn't qualified for the World Cup in North Carolina with a lame duck manager who will not be there past the summer. So it's hard to read anything into it. The only thing I like...
Do we know that? Well, honestly, do we know that?
We don't know that, but
people have all assumed that, and I mean... Barring something unforeseen, he's not the guy that I would put money on. But ultimately, when we're going to have a conversation after the World Cup as to who they're going to move forward with, his name will be in the running.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that he is a disciple of Bruce Arena, who's followed him to many of the jobs that he's had around the country. And he would be... I don't think he'd be seen by supporters as change at all. And last night looked like it was some kind of an audition for him because... Look how late we saw some of the substitutions.
I know.
It was like as almost he's protecting the lead. He didn't want to... When it was an opportunity to empty the bench at half-time, I mean, why are we dragging Tim Weah from Paris and not giving him 45 minutes? What is the... 5 minutes?
I know. I thought that
was scandalous. I thought that was scandalous. I really thought that was
scandalous. Is obviously dramatic. Let's relax. But
no,
there were a couple things that I thought were weird. That was weird to me. I didn't expect Zach Steffen to be in net the entire game. I thought we would for sure see, I mean, in a friendly with more than the usual number of subs, I thought we would see another keeper. And he didn't use all of the subs that were available to him.
He used 4 of 6.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That was very unusual
to
me.
Which leads me to believe that he wants, by the end of the series, in which we'll play obviously in Dublin and we'll play in Amsterdam, he wants a winning record as his time as interim coach, which I understand, but is that in the best interests of getting guys developed and getting them acclimatized to what it means to play for the national team?
Well, here's the thing. He's going to be able to point to a few things. There were some performances last night that I thought were really encouraging. I thought that Kenny Seth, which we now know is his pronunciation.
I was saying Saif.
The whole
Seth.
world was.
Yeah, okay.
It's Kenny Seth. I thought he was very good last night, especially in the first half. Him and I would say Jorge Villafana down the left side were really wreaking havoc against the Paraguay defenders. So I thought that combo was pretty electric.
I thought Tyler Adams did a good job inside. Obviously, made the bursting run forward for the penalty.
Let's talk about that for a sec. That was a great. The whole move there, I thought, was fantastic.
Well, Paraguay had pushed up and left a massive gap, and Marky Delgado read it really well, and the ball was perfectly weighted. Adams runs on and takes it past the keeper, draws the keeper into making a kind of a rash decision, and Bobby Wood rolled it away. I mean, it wasn't a good night for Bobby Wood in general. I don't think the service was great. There was a lot of crosses, which is indicative of a team that can't play centrally. They're going to try and push it out wide. None of those crosses came to anything. But
one thing before we move off of the goal, I have a question for you. I need help. I acknowledge you know more than me.
I don't know more than you.
You are my rabbi.
Oh, come on.
You're my rabbi. I come to you in times of need. Rabbi, help me.
And this is Passover, where traditionally...
We're almost there.
Okay.
So the penalty.
Yeah.
The keeper comes out. If the referee has decided that a foul has been committed. Well, the keeper in this situation is clearly the last man back. It has to be considered a foul on a goal-scoring opportunity. Why is it not a red card? Now, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
Was there not a trailing defender, though?
I mean, there was a defender in the picture.
Maybe that's why the ref saw it and just decided a yellow card or whatever he gave him was enough.
I guess, but I mean, no, you're right. I'm just asking for help. I need clarification.
Usually, if he comes flying out like that, and there's nobody tracking back that could possibly, then he'll get a red card. Like I think it was Jens Lehmann in the Champions League final. In the Champions League final. But I think in this case there may have been a covering defender on the right-hand side.
All right, I guess. I mean, I did go back and look at the replay, and there is a defender who's like trying to scramble back into position and get in front of the net. But I mean, at that point, it was one-on-one Adams and the keeper. Adams going down obviously allowed the other player time to get back.
It may have been in the ref's mind, look, this is a friendly, there's no point. I mean, a straight
But that
red.
is part of what I wanted to talk about. For a friendly, and not just a friendly, but this is a friendly that was meaningless on a whole different bunch of levels because neither the U.S. or Paraguay are going to this World Cup. So this was like true meaningless friendly. That game was chippy. Like there
was a couple of tasty challenges.
I thought the official actually allowed that game to get away from him.
I think what happened was that the U.S. weren't creating anything from like a threaded ball, a good build-up play. So they were flying into the tackles. In fairness, there was a lot of guys. Hang on.
How dare you?
Hang on.
Paraguay were flying into the tackles.
So Paraguay were too as well. I thought it was how would I put this? There was an intensity about it that was you could call it chippy. But I thought the US were trying to muster something, trying to make something happen, and so some of the tackles were a bit tasty. There was also a few really bad touches, which leads to a tackle always.
Well, it's true, but it was Marky Delgado, and I don't remember who the player was.
Down in
Paraguay.
The corner. Was that down?
Well, no, near midfield. When there was a 2-footed challenge that came in from somebody on Paraguay. I don't remember who, and Delgado narrowly avoided it, but he was down for a little while, and it led to Miazga getting into it with any number of players on Paraguay. You saw Yedlin getting into it on the sideline on a throw-in. I mean, there was a fair amount of back and forth between these two teams. In that game last night, which just kind of surprised me for a game that I thought was sort of, okay, everybody, we're all in our seasons here. Let's all get out of here in one piece. Let's develop whatever we're trying to develop on each side. I was a little surprised to see this sort of like anger from both sides that we did see. And look, maybe I'm seeing it through American colored glasses, but I thought Paraguay instigated pretty much all of it.
Don't forget, it was like kind of a first opportunity to impress for a lot of these US players. In a kind of a new look setup. There was a whole newness feel about the US, and they were probably going in hard because they wanted to give the game an intensity that it didn't really have outside of. I mean, it didn't. It was meaningless.
You're right.
You have to give it some meaning, and maybe a tasty 2-footed challenge or something like that gives it an impetus.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from this game?
Not really. Like I was upset with the fact that we didn't see Weah earlier. I was delighted that, even though he didn't play well, that Bobby Wood got a goal because he needs something now, and the rumour is he's going to be heading back stateside after the end of this season, that Hamburg won't be keeping him, which is kind of disappointing.
It hasn't gone the way that we had hoped it would for
No,
him.
it really hasn't developed, and the manager at Hamburg has talked about things like attitude and he hasn't really come up with the goals. I mean, one goal all season it's just poor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nothing really stood out for me except that it just had that classic friendly feel. Huge amount of crosses going into the box. Keeper catches them. A little bit of intensity, a little bit of chippiness. Look, good ball for the goal, but it's so isolated in its nothingness that I can't really extrapolate anything from it. Except, I will say this. Anytime you get to represent your country, it's got to mean a lot. I kind of did like, at moments, and I know Miazga had a heavy touch at one moment that nearly put the team in trouble, but I did kind of like Cameron Carter-Vickers and Matt Miazga together. Mm-hmm. But if I say anything outside of that, I'm just making stuff up.
I think that's pretty fair. The one thing for me, this, in some ways, I heard some people talking about this game and saying, this feels a little bit like a new look to what the U.S. want to do. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. This felt like a lot of USA games that we've seen over the years. They for the most part, especially in the first half, kind of bossed the game, controlled,
had a lot of possession,
controlled most of the possession, had chances, had trouble with that final ball, ultimately did get a goal. But as is typically the case with the U.S., they felt susceptible on the counterattack, which is how they get burnt oftentimes against teams that they believe they're better than. I don't know if that's true of Paraguay, but I go into a game at home believing the U.S. should beat Paraguay. They find themselves susceptible there. And JJ, it didn't hurt them, but set pieces looked like an issue too. I mean, there were a few in the first half that Paraguay were getting ahead to that, Stefan happened to make a save on or a header happened to go wide. But set pieces are sometimes an issue for this team. It's just frustrating to see the U.S., they play well, and then a chance here, a chance there sneaks by them, and a better team than Paraguay might have capitalized on.
Well, honestly, it's very tough to have a team at such a short space of time with such a new amount of players into the team, young players, and get them working into a system. You would think that Dave Sarr can spend a lot of time working on, because that's really the easiest thing to do for him. Well, this is how we're going to mark up at set pieces. We're going to go zonal on these free kicks or whatever. It didn't appear to be the case. But again, I wouldn't read too much into that in general.
Yeah, I would totally agree. That's about it for that game. I guess we'll take a brief look, very brief, at a bigger picture with this team right now. We are coming up on 6 months since that fateful night, JJ. You remember it well. We were seated in these exact seats that we're in right now.
Silence.
We were in stunned silence for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Just sat here.
Yeah, trying to figure out what on earth had just happened.
Now that I'm just thinking about it now, we've had 6 months, and so the dust is kind of settled. I'm trying to think of where I actually rank it for my worst loss across all sports.
You told me on the night that it's a long time since you felt that way.
It is. It really is. I haven't felt that low watching a sporting event in a really long time.
Yeah. I just didn't know.
We're going back there now.
Yeah. I was just like looking at you, and you kept refreshing the screen and trying to... I don't know what you were trying to do, really. As if you were trying...
I was trying to will a goal.
Through force of will. And then there was just this deathly silence when we realised that's it, we're out.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
That was grim.
So it's been 6 months. So let's take a moment, look kind of a broad view of how things have transpired since then. With respect to the U.S., what's the best thing that has happened in that time?
I think I've gone with the kind of a young player mentality. So Tim Weah off the bench for PSG, Josh Sargent in the U17 World Cup, and his move to Werder Bremen, Weston McKennie's progress at Schalke until he got hurt. Those things. Yeah. That's what I've been looking at and thinking that's good. Especially
too, McKennie scored the goal for the U.S. against Portugal. Tyler Adams draws the penalty last night. And by and large, he's been one of the Red Bulls' best players. We're seeing the development of some of these players. It's very early, but it seems like some of these guys are moving in the direction at this point that you would want to see them moving in. So that's something to feel good about.
Yeah, it's been a youth movement feel for me. Nothing that the more veteran senior players have done really has.
Although again, this is what you just talked about, but here, with respect to last night, this is what Alejandro Moreno said about that youth movement and the way Dave Sarachan handled it.
Overall, I would have liked to have seen more names out there. We know what Bobby Wood is. We know what Darlington Nagbe is. But all along we were hearing about Timothy Weah. Well, he gets to be out there in the 86th minute. Well, that doesn't do anything for evaluation process. I just thought there was an opportunity wasted to see more of the younger talent, because that was the reason that this game was put forth. And that's the way it was sold to the media and to the fans is, look, we're going to see the younger talent. We didn't quite see the younger talent. We saw some young players, but we didn't see the younger talent that everybody has been speaking of.
You know what that kind of was last night? You know how last week I said, look, be happy that the U.S. are playing young players, but don't give them credit for it. It's the toe in the soup theory.
Right.
When the toe is in the soup, the chef needs to come out and say your meal's on the house. Last night, the toe was in the soup. The chef came out, and all he did, he offered us dessert on the house. He didn't give us the whole meal.
Right, exactly. And again, I don't see what it would have done except maybe put the game in jeopardy, and we don't even know if it would have, to have introduced a plethora of players at halftime. Surely that's the point.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I asked the question of the best thing that's happened, and we devolve into all this negativity. That speaks volumes. So what's the worst thing that's happened in these 6 months?
I've just put together a little compilation.
Of course you have.
Bobby Wood's continuing situation, the Jonathan Gonzalez defection, the U.S. soccer president election, Sarkin...
Wow, you have that listed among the worst things that have happened.
Oh, I thought that was incredibly unhelpful, and at the end, nobody got what they wanted, really.
We'll see. We'll see.
The continuing, the problematic process for the awarding of the World Cup as well, which I've just lumped in as well, where we're not.
Yeah. We
seem to be out in front, and now we're not. And last night, and just generally across his brief tenure, just Sarkin calling up youth players but not giving them all the time we've wanted. That is frustrating.
It's worrisome that you had a very easy time coming up with bad things that have happened in the last 6 months, and we struggled a little bit for the good things. I don't like that.
You know, I mean, it's March.
Yeah.
It's only March. This is the third month of the year.
I need things to happen faster, and things are moving very slowly.
Okay.
The U.S. don't have another friendly until, is it May 28th, I believe?
Yeah.
This was weird. Bringing these players back from Europe for one game.
I don't.
Where was the second friendly here?
Right, I don't. That's why I'm saying to bring youth players to North Carolina last night and give them 5 minutes.
Yeah, the U.S.
to use 4 of your 6 substitutes. Like, what are you doing?
Well, look, there's more to it, obviously, than just what happened in the game last night. The fact that these guys were able to train together, spend some time together, integrate a little bit. I know.
There but the game was the centerpiece of their whole involvement, because the training and everything, as nice as it is under a manager that may not be there come the end of the summer.
Very true. Before we get out of the U.S. talk, has anyone in particular caught your eye other than the obvious? You know, we've talked a lot about McKinney and Adams and players like that.
And Weah, obviously Josh Sargent, but Andrew Carleton, who was not involved last night.
Okay, so I don't know how he could have caught your eye, but thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, sorry, he's just actually making senior appearances for his club, Atlanta United, and had an assist last weekend. I don't know what you want from me, but that obviously doesn't cut it.
The goalkeeper situation is one that has caught my eye. They go with Zach Steffen last night. He wasn't really called in to all that much action. He didn't have to do a ton last night. It's still in flux. And Brad Guzan, he's kind of been lumped in with all this failure from the previous, from 6 months ago in Trinidad. He did not play in that game. Tim Howard was the keeper that night. Tim Howard, I believe, sadly, he's done, I think, with the U.S. team. And it's unfortunate he goes out on the note that he did. But just because Brad Guzan was part of all that, I don't know that he's still not the number one keeper for the U.S.
I think you have to look at his body of work for the U.S. And he played in Mexico in the 1-1 draw in World Cup qualifying, was solid, I guess. But he's had his moments, including
You're right, he is not perfect.
The Gold Cup semi-final against Jamaica, where he was at fault for probably both of the goals. So
even though... ever since that Jamaica goal that he allowed off the free kick when they ruled that he was still touching the ball outside of the 18-yard box, I watch games now differently after having seen that game. JJ, it happens every game. It happens once a game.
It was from a kick-out, wasn't it?
I don't even remember, but I just know that Guzan he had the ball and was just throwing it out, and they ruled him, and maybe his arm was out of the 18-yard box, but it happened. If they wanted to, they could call it in every single game played.
Okay.
I'll never let it go.
No, you really do hold on to these things.
Yeah.
And also as well, I saw him in the debacle, the opening game for Atlanta at Houston, and he was dire.
So that's our look at the U.S. men. Like we said, May 28th against Bolivia is when they are back in action. We'll continue to monitor, of course, progress of these guys with their club teams.
Which is all important.
Yeah.
Look, Cameron Carter-Vickers, recalled from Sheffield United, didn't work out. He's at Ipswich Town now, I believe. And, why did that happen? I thought he was going well at Sheffield United. It's all about what they do at the club. It really is.
Agreed. Let's see some other stories from the international break. Lots of games were going on. I know there were some high-profile games. I'm not going to lie. I don't lie to the people on this podcast. This international break really did very little for me. I'm sorry. The EPL is reaching its crescendo, really into the flow of what was going on in the league. MLS is just starting up.
We still got some talking points. Come on.
I know, but it didn't. It just didn't. I'm sorry. Let's start with England. If you want to go down the VAR road, we can.
No, I really don't want to.
Oh, okay, good. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to hear you say
ESPN put out a pretty good article about what VAR is, and it still doesn't change my mind about it. And there's been some classic misconceptions about what it's supposed to do, including from myself. Clear and obvious has nothing got to do with it, apparently, now, so whatever.
Well, no. Clear and obvious has everything to do with it. It's just very subjective as to what clear and obvious means.
Let's move on.
There you go. This has nothing to do with the game itself, but Raheem Sterling said something that I thought was interesting, because you know I gravitate towards fan-related issues. I'm going to read a quote from Sterling about England's fans. Quote, "I feel sometimes there's a bit too much negativity. I would love to hear some positive notes going in, just to make the boys know that everyone's behind them," he told BBC's Radio 5 Live. Continue here. If you want your country to do well, as everyone says, bring a positive light into it. Make the boys go off to the World Cup with clear heads, knowing everyone's behind them, everyone's with them. We know what we can do. I believe what we can do. It's just having that support and that backing, feeling loved. Trust me, I think you'll definitely see a better England. What do you think? Is he taking a shot here? Is he right in what he's saying?
Like, I get his point, but it's kind of roller coaster with England, and I guarantee you there's a swagger after the last two games, particularly considering what Holland did to Portugal, and considering England's good result in Amsterdam, and they probably should have beaten Italy last night. So what happens is the fluctuation, the up and the down. You know, they go up until probably the 2014 World Cup, which was the first time they went in with low expectations into a tournament. They usually go into with really high expectations, and I don't get where he gets that the fans aren't behind them.
JJ, you say all the time on this podcast about England fans' negativity and how quick they are to jump on their team.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what he's talking about.
Usually what happens is they get hyped up by the tabloid media that this is a like golden generation, blah, blah, blah,
right,
which we saw under Sven-Göran Eriksson. And then when they're let down, they crush them for months and months afterwards until the next result comes around and qualification, and suddenly the hope rises. It's a roller coaster. And I get what Raheem Sterling is saying. But if you see the way that a lot of the England fans acted in Amsterdam, which we'll get to later on in the pod in more detail, they're not a generally positive, happy bunch, you know? It's not in their nature. This, as long as I can remember, it's almost like this is what happens. So they qualify. They're expected to qualify. The tabloid papers build them up, and then they find a scapegoat, maybe a Paul Gascoigne, a Jack Wilshere, or Wayne Rooney, whatever. They focus in on him. They put immense pressure on that person. A series of events happens in which they get beaten by a team, A, that they should be beaten by, or B, in the case of Iceland, that they shouldn't be. And the fans turn on them en masse, as the tabloids do. It just seems like he's living in a world that for English football doesn't exist.
But he's right. Like, I do think that he is right. I think there is a negativity that surrounds them, and the players are not immune to it.
I would listen to the phone-ins the last few weeks. There's a weariness now. They're like, I'm excited. I thought I saw some good things from Garrett's team, but. Because, and why?
And they're right.
Because you've gone crashing out to Iceland. You didn't get out of the group in 2014. Yep. It's all those things, cumulative.
Yeah. You are right. However, he's right too. I think a fan base that is overly negative, that is quick to boo, that is quick to voice frustration, I think that seeps into a player's mindset. And, you know, England, it seems like we see it and hear about it more with them than we do.
Definitely. It's been that way for so many years. Sterling gets it on the street.
So with all that in mind, it's still early. We don't know exactly what their squad is going to be, but we have a general idea. And I believe Gareth Southgate came out and said that he kind of knows 19 or 20 of what his roster is going to be.
I would imagine
so. And we could probably guess. We're not going to sit here and name all those players, but you know who we're talking about. So what's a reasonable expectation for England?
Just get out of the group.
That's
Seriously.
it?
Get out of the group. Navigate that group. That group is potentially tricky for them. Okay, there's teams that they're expected to beat. Classically, they'll struggle against one of them, and there's a monster team in there in Belgium.
Right.
So they've got get out of the group, move forward. Honestly,
okay.
They really have to manage expectations here, because if you look at what happened in Euro 2016, they didn't play particularly well in the group stage, but there was a kind of a feeling that this was building towards something. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that performance against Iceland, which was shocking.
It came to a screeching halt.
Yeah. That's
as it typically does. You go back to the 2012 Euros, looked great in the group, won the group, and then Italy on penalty kicks in the quarterfinals. Boom, gone. So it tends to happen quickly for England. We're playing well, up and gone.
And even most of the time on analysis, they're not actually playing that well. They're just getting along, but expectations have risen because they've achieved what they wanted to do, get out of the group, and then bang, something hits them.
Yeah.
And look,
this performance against Italy, it was fine. I thought, Jamie Vardy looked good, scored the goal. Good job by Lingard in the way that he set that up, taking the free kick quickly.
Yeah. I think the issue for England is going to be that midfield, that central midfield area. Because up front, if you have Dele Alli, Kane and Sterling, which I expect to be a kind of a... I actually don't know what formation he's going to play, but you imagine...
And there is talk about a lot of uncertainty regarding Dele Alli and what his role will be. Is he a guy? Is he just going to serve as a super sub for this side? Do they not really know just yet if he's going to be a regular first-team starter?
I believe they've got the attacking options up the field. They've got Rashford as well. I think they've got players that can impact, but I honestly worry the same way we saw in qualifying with that 2-2 draw at Hampden Park against Scotland. I'm not convinced by that midfield. I'm really not. I'm not sure he's figured it out yet either.
Yeah,
and that would concern me.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. Let's see. We move on from that. A couple of the other friendlies that are worth mentioning: Brazil and Germany. A 1-0 victory for Brazil in Berlin. I suppose I don't want to take. Just like what I said for the U.S., the reason I'm so hesitant, you have conditioned me. I give you credit for it. There was a time when friendlies, they meant something.
They informed some of your thinking.
Yes, they did. And maybe they still do that a little bit. But I don't want to go overboard. You see Brazil-Germany and Brazil winning in Germany. You want to think certain things, but if these two teams are to meet again this summer in Russia, is what just happened in Berlin, does it have any bearing whatsoever on what's going to happen the next time they meet? No. Quite frankly, no. Now, do I believe that Brazil is a legitimate favorite for this World Cup? Yes, absolutely. But does this change the way that I feel about Germany also being a legit favorite for the World Cup? No, it doesn't. They're both favorites. Among some others who we'll get to. But look, Brazil are very good. They were able to do this without Neymar, Gabriel Jesus scoring the goal. They have depth at a lot of different positions. I feel really, really good about Brazil at this stage in the game.
I think what's interesting to me about Brazil was, and I saw them in about 3 games in World Cup qualifying, 3 full games, and I thought the way Chiche had them playing, the attacking style, I thought, it's easy to say Brazil is back. This is what we know Brazil to be. What I saw in Berlin last night was a more conservative, still good play, but without Neymar, a more conservative team and a team that was resolute. Now, what have we not associated with, we'll say, certainly the last time they played Germany, the 7-1, was a complete lack of defensive clarity or any kind of midfield clarity or a resolute, strong nature. So, I guess what I want to say is that Chiche has proven that he can be pragmatic as well, and that's good going into a tournament.
Yeah. Let's see. Argentina and Spain. This was unexpected. 6-1 for Spain. I'm going to say this. I'm going to keep the company line of what I just gave for Brazil and Germany.
Okay.
Now, I know the result was horrifying for Argentina. It was jarring. And I'm sure there's going to be some guys and some fans whose confidence is rattled by it. However, if you told me the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing, Spain are a great team. So let's tell me the Cavs are playing the Warriors, and you tell me that the Warriors won by 40, I would say, oh my God, that's horrifying. Then if you told me, yeah, but LeBron didn't play, I would say, oh, okay, well, it's bad, but I get it.
I see what you're saying.
No Messi, no Dybala, no Icardi. I'm not saying that Argentina still don't have good players, but don't ask me to pass judgment over Argentina when 3 of their best players, and by the way, one of those players is the best player in the world, when those 3 aren't playing, I'm not prepared to make any sweeping judgments about Argentina.
I was reading our very own Tim Vickery, who I'm sure we'll consult before the World Cup, on ESPN.com, talking about this Sampaoli's project. So let's not forget they scraped over the line. It took Messi coming back and scoring a hat-trick against Ecuador to finally make it to the World Cup. Andrew, they have so many questions about style of play, who plays alongside Messi. You just named some of the guys there, Dybala, Icardi, how they figure this out. What about Higuain, Aguero? And then you're not even talking about the midfield. You're not
or
even
the defence.
The defence was shambolic against Spain. The amount of space they gave up. He also experimented with 2 new fullbacks that didn't really work out for him. And also, he's a book coming out.
Go on.
Jorge Sampaoli. Here's a extract from the book. A revolver called the World Cup is put to his head, Messi, and if he doesn't win, it fires and kills him. It's madness that he cannot enjoy his talent. And Sampaoli goes on to explain how everything Argentina do must be tailored around getting the best from Messi. Like, Sampaoli is no closer to figuring out the conundrum of this Argentinian team than he was at the end of the qualifiers. And it was interesting that Sampaoli said the following. He didn't want any of these warm-up games. He didn't want them. Guess where he wants the team? On the training field, working on formation, trying to find out what works. It's March.
You're right. The clock is ticking.
It's getting late early. So it's going to be very interesting. And that's why I want Tim on at some point maybe to see if any of that is solved. It probably won't be solved over the next few months until the next round of friendlies.
Yeah, look, that is fair. I'm not saying...
Do you not think it's crazy, though, that he's releasing a book with all these kind of statements about the inner workings of the team and the importance of Messi and the pressure on Messi at this point? It feels like some kind of self-sabotage.
And maybe like a bit of a money grab, right? For a book like that to be released so close to a World Cup when Argentinian, fervor is going to be at its peak.
Yeah, well, he's not doing much for the fervor. He's pretty much killing the fervor with the way he's talking.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, though, right? I mean, it's just hard. He's basing his entire team around Messi. He said that from the passage that you just read in the book. So if Messi's not playing in a game like this, 6-1 is jarring. You certainly don't want that. But
Messi couldn't even stay to the end to watch it. He just got up and left.
74th minute, bang, out of there.
Look, I'm not writing them off, but again, just like I kind of suggested with England, they have problems further back the field that they don't look close to. Like I said, I know I was talking about how good Isco is and what a good player and a good talent he is, but God, has he ever had so much space?
Yeah, it's true.
Shambles.
You're right. And meanwhile, Isco and Spain are kind of lurking, right? You get, Brazil, Germany, France. It feels like you're hearing a lot about those sides in the build-up to the World Cup. Everyone acknowledges Spain is great, but because they're coming out of this incredible run, they're coming off of a bit of a struggle in the last couple competitions, especially going out the way they did to Italy at the last Euros, it feels like they're under the radar a little. And I'm kind of excited to see how Spain responds to a rare... Underdog is strong, but for lack of a better term, kind of more of an underdog role than what a lot of these guys are used to over the last decade, essentially.
I think after trashing Argentina 6-1, even if it is a friendly, the secret might be out. Maybe.
It's possible. One other one here, Mexico, they fall to Croatia 1-0, but there was an aspect of this that I found kind of interesting. Juan Carlos Osorio was sort of annoyed with Croatia for not sending some of their top-notch players for this match. Juan Carlos Osorio said this, quote, "I don't know why Croatia has sent the players back, and I don't have the arguments to give an opinion. But the organizers in the future have to take into consideration the situation and have suggestions and norms in the contract so that we can play against the best possible 11. I found this interesting for one primary reason.
He rested players against Iceland.
Ding, ding, ding. When Iceland scheduled Mexico, do you think that they were expecting to see Chicharito among other good Mexican players? Because Juan Carlos Osorio rested those players for that game.
Right.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, and even with the rested players, you still didn't manage to win the game against Croatia. So it's just one of those things.
Do teams have any obligation whatsoever? Yeah.
No, not really.
Couldn't agree more. So there you go. That is our look at most of the international break. Anything else stand out to you?
Not really, no. It was, I just kind of enjoyed seeing the new ball, the new kits, just kind of gave you a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a feeling, quickened the pulse a little bit for the World Cup, no?
A very little bit, I would say, sadly. Oh, but now this gets the pulse going. 66% of men, JJ, did you know this, lose their hair by age 35? You probably know it better than anyone sitting there over there with that toupee on your head. The thing is, when you start to notice hair loss, it's too late. Do you have hair loss in your family?
No. Well, no. Yeah, no one in our family is.
Yeah. I don't think I didn't, but now I think I may have married into it.
Genetically, it comes from the mother side, so...
Yeah, I think, well...
Good luck, Jack.
Yeah, I know. It's possible. He could be dealing with this, which means when I go home, I'm going to wake him up, and I'm going to read this ad to him.
You monster.
He needs to know. He needs to know that it's easier to keep the hair you have than to replace the hair you've lost. Is that hairline slowly starting to move backwards? Any bald spots yet? That little... I call it the yarmulke bald spot. It's a little bald spot right on the top of the head there. How will you feel a year from now if it's business as usual up there? Well, I ask you, do you want a bald spot to pop up, or do you want to do something about it first? Do you want your hairline to recede, or do you want to do something about it first? Why do guys turn to weird solutions, or they do nothing when they can turn to medicine and science? forhims.com, forhims.com. It's a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness, all for men. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional.
Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, Andres Iniesta. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. Well-known...
Pierluigi Collina.
You love that one. That's your go-to. Well-known generic equivalents to name-brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair. No snake oil pills, no gas station counter supplements, prescription solutions backed by science.
Jordan Lechkov.
It's just so easy. Answer a few quick questions, and a doctor will review and prescribe you.
Attilio Lombardo.
Products are shipped directly to your door. I'm thinking about this now because I feel like my gene pool is going to be poisoned. The baldness is entering. No offense to all of our bald listeners. If you were bald, would you just shave your head completely, or would you try to fight it?
Shave my head completely, or if I had the money, I would probably do what Anthony Stokes and Lee Griffiths did.
Hair plugs.
No, they just got a full new head of hair. It's brilliant.
Yeah, isn't that hair plugs?
No, it's way beyond hair plugs.
A new head of hair?
Yep. They harvested it from the back of their heads and grew it onto the front. What an age we live in.
I suppose that is a thing. Well, here you go, everybody. Order now. Our listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now while supplies last. See the website for full details. This would cost hundreds of dollars if you went to the doctor or the pharmacy. We're doing this for $5. Go to forhims.com/offside. That's forhims.com/offside. forhims.com/offside.
I'm Landon Donovan, and I approve this message.
Oh, you've gone and you've made it very deeply personal. I don't believe you just did
Red
that.
card.
I should give that to you for just degrading a legend the way that you did. I will go first, if you will allow it.
You may.
You allow it. Armando Prisco is my red card. I saw this at our friends over at ProSoccerTalk.com had this article up. He's an Italian 4th Division keeper for Messina. He was sent off over the weekend for urinating mid-game against Ikea.
Seen it.
Well, I'm curious for your story. Here's his. It was pouring out during the game, so maybe Prisco thought he could sneak it. Here's what Prisco said about the incident. Quote, I made a gesture as if I was stretching just because I knew that people were around and I didn't want people to think that I was urinating. But the referee noticed. He asked Prisco what he was doing. And Prisco continues here. He said, he took it a bit too personally. I was honest enough to tell him what had happened, and I don't think anyone else noticed. Prisco finished up by saying, next time I'll try to hold it in. I'm 21. I'm not incontinent yet. Pretty good.
When you got to go, though.
Here's why. Ultimately, I actually think this is pretty funny, and I don't want to be like the old guy in the room who, like,
in my day, we used the bathroom.
Well, I think that applies to anyone's day. But here's why he gets my red card. Two primary reasons. For one, he was subbed on at the half. So he had the entire first 45 minutes of this game to use the bathroom if he really had to go.
Sometimes the nerves kick in and it kind of just it brings it upon itself.
Which kind of leads to my second one here. This happened with just 5 minutes remaining in the match.
Oh, come on, dude.
You've made it this far? You can't go 5 more minutes holding it in?
And if you pee yourself, no one will notice.
Right, so what did he do? Like, if
have you not ever done it?
If it's pouring out, I would say just go.
Have you never knelt down to tie your shoelace or Slipped the old boy out and had a wee-wee.
No.
Never did that? Buddy,
I guess one of us have.
Buddy of mine in a semi-final.
A quote-unquote buddy.
A semi-final called me over in the warm-up. And he goes, just stand there for a second. And he's down and it's like he's stretching his hamstring. And he whips the old lad out and wee-wees.
A friend.
Yeah.
A friend.
So what?
Oh, no, I'm implying that it was you, and you're shielding yourself behind this imaginary friend.
I have done it myself.
Oh, well, all right, there you go.
I've marked my territory on Randall's Island soccer fields.
In the rain or just whatever?
Oh, it was half-time, bit of a kneel down beside the fence.
That's beautiful.
Quick look for the cops. Away you go, baby.
That is beautiful. What's your red card?
Myself. My red card is England away. 100 arrests in Amsterdam for the friendly.
Boy, this summer in Russia is going to be really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, the videos of them singing World War II songs, abusive songs about Irish people, Welsh people, nothing changes.
So they're in Amsterdam.
Yep, yeah.
What do the Welsh and the Irish have anything to do with what's going on?
And why do they need to sing the 10 German Bombers song? Like, why is that happening? So
I mean, I said it flippantly, but honestly, tension right now between Russia and I'll say the West in general, but specifically England, given what's just happened with the former spy who was poisoned,
right,
presumably by the Russians, tension is high, and you know, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, and I'm a little nervous / curious about it.
Yeah, organised Russian hooligan groups against the English that land there, they're not going to be waiting for them. But, I mean, just to focus on the English, they were throwing bottles off those bridges that go over the canals in Amsterdam to people who were boating underneath. They got into riots with the police through the streets of Amsterdam after the game. Yeah. Just really ugly stuff. I don't know what else to really say about it. Someone made an interesting point in a podcast I was listening to. Has the kind of the Brexit vote unleashed even more nationalism and daring amongst English fans? Like, they feel now Europe is foreign territory now.
Well, maybe. I mean,
but then they always did it. Really.
Nationalism is one thing. Throwing bottles at
but the singing of the songs.
Well, you're right, but I don't know where throwing bottles at unsuspecting.
But attacking
locals.
Police like it's a war, like they're invading someplace.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get into the psychology of it because, again, on the podcast, someone said, "Well, it feels as if they haven't done it since Euro 2000, but I analysed it. The 2002 World Cup was in Korea. 2004, there were some incidents in Portugal. 2006, there were incidents in Germany. 2008, they didn't qualify. 2010 was in South Africa, and 2014 was in Brazil. And we know what they did.
And there were huge
incidents in the Port of Marseille and everything in 2016.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Caught Offside's man of the match.
I feel weird doing this now because on our other podcast, we had a listener, I don't remember their name, but they asked if we were going to overreact to the changes made by UEFA.
Right, Andrew was his name.
And on that note, UEFA gets my man of the match this week because they did two things yesterday, both of which I like. Teams will now be allowed to use a fourth sub in a UEFA competition if it goes to extra time. I'll be honest, I'm sort of lukewarm, neutral on that one. Don't hate it, don't love it, whatever. But more so, players will no longer be cup tied if they played in a UEFA event with another club that season. Now, you know, if you've been listening to this podcast, that I have been asking for this for a while.
Yeah.
It was an antiquated rule. I think players of too great a significance switch clubs in January now. It's wrong that their new clubs can't shell out all this money, but then those players can't be used at their disposal to win this competition. Look, I'm not a Barcelona fan necessarily, but when I sit down to watch the Champions League, part of what you hope you're getting is a competition where you can watch some of the best players in the world. And, it's why a lot of people, I'm not lumping myself into this group, but there are people that enjoy the Champions League more than the World Cup. I want to see Philippe Coutinho playing for Barcelona. It's silliness to me that he can't because of an old, antiquated rule that doesn't make sense to me anymore. Aubameyang not being able to play for Arsenal in the Europa League is crazy when he even played in the Europa League this season. But because Borussia Dortmund were now in it, it's just not, it's silliness to me. So I'm glad the rule is gone. This makes more sense. You're on the team. You should be able to play regardless of what competition it is. So, rarely do we sit here and applaud things done by the establishment. But in this case, I am going to, because I have been saying for a while that I don't like the rule. The rule will change. Therefore, I am pleased.
I'm okay with the rule change, actually. I've come around on it a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I'm more interested in the fact that there will be a fourth substitute can be made in extra time. I actually think that's kind of cool and could bring a new element to things.
What do you got?
My man of the match. You know the way we always talk about certain players as players that you could only love because they play for your team, like Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, we talk about with him.
Their general demeanour is just like, I would hate him if he played for anyone else.
Dele Alli, big one for me.
Right. I can imagine that Scott Brown falls into that category, the Celtic and Scotland midfielder. But the Celtic man hit the headlines this week after the announcement of his testimonial that Celtic have granted him after 10 seasons at Parkhead. Celtic will play a Republic of Ireland 11 in a testimonial match for Scott Brown on May 20th. But Brown will donate a portion of the estimated $1 million he will accrue to the family of former Celtic midfielder Liam Miller, who passed away from pancreatic cancer last month. I just thought there's a range of charities he's divvying his money up for that he's going to give them out to. And he's going to give a portion of it to the Miller family, which I think is just fantastic. And look, we get so cynical about kind of players and player wages and the way the game has gone, but it still can act to do a tremendous amount of good through these kind of charitable donations. And I just thought, because Scott Brown he missed out on playing with Liam Miller. I don't think he suited up for Celtic with Liam Miller at all. So it's nice that he acknowledges the club's past and does something that he really didn't have to do.
Yeah. No, that's a classy move.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I would doubt there's a more divisive player playing in Scotland, certainly. And I know Rangers fans are going to continue to hate on him. I understand that. He won't be the breath of fresh air that Brendan Rodgers is.
Boy, any chance you get to mention that, you just love it.
Stopped me in the tunnel and said, made me roll down the window. I thought, here I go. You're a breath of fresh air, he said. Unbelievable, incredible, beautiful character.
Well,
we still don't believe that, right?
Maybe something closely resembling that
You're
happened.
a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you got over there? It seems like you got stuff going on.
Oh, I've got things to say, yeah. Sports fans, did you know you can stream this podcast on Spotify right now? Well, you can. It's easy. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop. Click on the Browse channel, then click on the podcast section. You can also stream on your smart speaker. Now that it's much easier for you to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest in all things sports, thanks to Spotify.
Why are you yelling at me?
I just think this is great news.
It is.
So the fact we're on Spotify is very, very cool.
Spotify is very popular.
If I want to hear my own voice, I often go, Alexa, open Spotify, play Caught Offside, and they do.
Yeah. And there you hear yourself.
Yeah, which is weird.
Well, there you go. That is our show for the week. Mentioned earlier, we have another podcast out. Give it a listen. Lots to talk about Zlatan and his move to the United States, and we cover it from multiple angles. Speak with Philip O'Connor, who's a journalist in Stockholm, and we speak with Kevin Baxter of the LA Times, who covers the Galaxy. Both guys have been all over this move. It's pretty interesting stuff. With Zlatan comes a lot of interest,
yeah,
we'll say.
A couple of revelations.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out. Hey, my friend, this was a good time. I hope the rest of your week is lovely. I'm going to have a wonderful Passover down in Philadelphia with my family.
Oh, nice.
And I wish you a very happy Easter.
Thank you. I shall celebrate our Lord.
Same. I wish all of these things to our many listeners as well. To you, I say...
Take it later, fun boy.
I'll see you.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Caught Offside Soccer Podcast.